What's your story? One question that makes me uncomfortable, especially when it comes from people I barely know. What's your business with my story? My stories are as vast as they are varied and very personal. I tell them for God's glory, yet I feel uncomfortable when put on the spot by people I barely know with that very question. Funny enough, that was the same question some strangers in a ship that was heading to Tarshish put across to the man caught sleeping on the lower deck, while everyone else was troubled, panting and praying for safety as wild winds threatened to drown them all at sea. I'm sure Jonah felt uncomfortable when all eyes turned on him, the suspected cause of their dangerous predicament, awaiting to hear, if not to see, the skeletons hidden in his luggage. By the time Jonah told the story of a mere man fleeing from the mighty God, everyone feared even more, not just because of the fearful God who is in hot pursuit of his runaway servant, but their condition also grew more precarious. Eventually, it was mutually agreed that the runaway messenger be dumped into the sea at the mercy of the Almighty God he offended. One good thing that came out of Jonah's aborted escape was that after witnessing the wonders of this God they didn't know prior to that encounter, through a disobedient servant, the people on the ship all honored God from that point onward. Not to be taken unawares, God sent the very fish he had reserved to swallow Jonah. For 3 days, that runaway messenger sat miserably alone in the belly of a fish, in the depth of the sea. The mixture of misery, despair, darkness, sadness, aloneness, and loneliness over a period left Jonah very depressed. After 3 days of intense affliction of soul, mind, and body, Jonah broke down in tears and began venting to the God he had turned his back on. Despite the depths of darkness and overwhelming despair, relief comes when all the venom inside is voiced in a healthy manner. Not only did Jonah feel a sense of relief after venting with God, he also began to feel the strange stirrings of hope. Don't forget, hope is as powerful as it is dangerous. Jonah was able to acknowledge the seriousness of his complicated situation, and despite the overwhelming darkness he was stuck in, he was also ready to give voice to the hope he felt inside. Hope that he will get out of the darkness and despair. Hope that he will live, not die from that calamitous experience. Hope that he will see the light again and feel joy again. In the belly of a fish, at the depths of the sea, Jonah understood something that never made sense in all the years of freedom and happiness with family and friends. That God does not delight in expensive items labeled sacrifices. Instead, he esteems the offering that flows from a sincere heart to a gracious God, visible or invisible. Depressed under a situation where he had no access to anyone or anything to offer God, Jonah learned the best offering that God appreciates, giving voice to a thankful heart into the ears of the mighty God. Constrained and depressed, where he could go nowhere and do nothing, Jonah lifted up his heart, though still downcast, and offered to God the sacrifice of thanksgiving. What does someone in such a miserable situation have to be thankful for? As we discussed in earlier videos, gratitude is a lifter, and it doesn't emerge because our condition has changed. It rises from the depths of our being, despite our situation. Sincere gratitude, unforced gratitude, untainted gratitude, because your perspective has shifted. He vented the killing pressure within. His focus shifted from him and his issues and he began to see things differently. As a result, just like we saw in Hannah's story, not only was there a change in his mood, there was also a significant change in his attitude and response, even though his physical condition was yet to change. Against all odds, he knew something he didn't know before. He saw better and he could see ahead. He felt a sense of hope, joy, and gratitude in spite of his situation. Listen, you can move a depressed person away from the constraints and they will take depression from the prison to the palace. But when that light comes on, you can constrain the same person all you want in prison, but they will remain joyful, thankful, and hopeful. When the light of truth comes on inside, it dispels the darkness and moodiness of depression, and it is so freeing despite the limited condition the person may be living under. The physical change may take a while, but hope keeps you alive and well until you can experience the physical reality of the internal miracle that already took place. It's just a matter of time before the natural align with the spiritual. Like the fish took upon itself to find a conducive place to vomit Jonah, so the physical constraints will eventually lose its hold because it's impossible to keep a person who has experienced internal freedom bound. As hard as it is for a person who is internally bound to enjoy physical freedom, more so, it is even harder to keep bound a person who is free inside. It's just a matter of time. That was Jonah's story. What's your story? Have you yet experienced that internal freedom that births hope, joy, and gratitude despite your physical condition? Don't get spent trying to change the outside, doing nothing about the inside, which is the real you. How can you invest into who you are so you can experience the light coming inside? What resources are available to you right now to bring about the essential, even critical shift on the inside? All Jonah had access to in the deep darkness he found himself was God. He engaged the only thing he had access to, therapy with God. He turned toward God and vented into his ears. His deliverance started with talking to God. He vented every anger, fear, doubt, pain, venom inside, and he experienced relief that shifted his perspective from being angry and ungrateful to being hopeful, joyful, and thankful toward the same God he was trying to evade. Though the times between Jonah's story and ours are different, you and I have access to God still, and so much more. How can you reach out today and utilize these available resources to rid yourself of all the internal poison so you can experience relief, hope, joy, and gratitude? Who can you talk to? Do you need to make an appointment for that? When will you make the call? A little step taken today is more profitable than 1,000,000 steps planned for tomorrow. Start today. Do something. Talk to someone in position to advise and support you on your journey. May God's wisdom guide you accordingly. Don't forget to subscribe and share this with family and friends. Be inspired. You are a star, and it's your time to shine.